I'm so happy to have Dr. Chantal Dubuisson-Myllymaki here today. She's a wonderful, I'm happy to call her friend and have her here today. So I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself today to you all. And again, I just really appreciate each and every one of you for being here. Take it away, Chantal.
All right, thank you. It's great being here, and I also appreciate the connection and the ability to share. Let me share my screen. As I said before, I'm not a tech person, but being teaching through this platform, I've done some troubleshooting, so I hope that that doesn't have to happen today. So just to introduce myself, again, my name is Chantal Dubuisson-Myllymaki, and I've been serving the San Francisco Bay Area for over 25 years. My background is in counseling. I have 2 degrees in clinical psychology and a doctorate in higher learning, which is adult education. I'm just so happy to be the co-founder of Threshold, which is a teaching, training, consulting, and supporting organization. And we provide workshops passing on psychoeducational interventions to support and empower parents in particular, but everyone, okay? So also a little bit of background about me. I am a parent of 2 adults. I can't believe how fast the time went. And have recently become a grandparent. So I'm just so excited for my little one. I'm also a first generation immigrant. My parents immigrated here from the Caribbean. So just a little bit of background so you can know the framework in which I am coming from. So in working, letting go of diapers, I like that heading, you know, it's potty training, but I like the thought of letting go of diapers because it's more of a general way of conceptualizing this milestone. So let me move here we go. So what we will be covering today is using the framework of cultural humility to support and empower caregivers through this milestone. Now, why cultural humility? We'll get into the details of that, but it's a wonderful framework to increase our ability to see each other's point of view, to understand each other's culture, and to work together with respect through this developmental milestone in supporting our families that we work with, and supporting and empowering. And I think those are the main stances we'd like to take. So some of the information that we might share might be that I might share might be validating, like you already know this, but maybe putting it in a different skew of, in letting go diapers, okay. And some information might be new, but what I want to say is just take from this experience what you can. It could be an answer you're looking for or a piece of the puzzle. So again, we're going to look at cultural humility and then examine and explore toilet training and how it's done around the world. And then work together with looking at guidelines for addressing questions, to learning about going to the bathroom, and then empowering and supporting caregivers before and during the process. I'm going to pause throughout the training, and you can ask questions throughout, probably through chat might be the best way. And Beth is monitoring that, but if you want to shout out, I welcome you to do that too. But also know that at the end, we will have time for questions, comments, and feedback. So I invite you to have a pen and paper and write your questions down, because it's so frustrating when you can't remember what you want to ask. So ask all through, ask at the end. It's all good. This is your space. So hopefully at the end of this training, you'll be able to identify one or two components of cultural humility and how you can apply that to working with your families and gathering guidelines to address caregivers' questions from a cultural humility perspective. And then list ways that you can empower caregivers before and during the toilet training process. As was mentioned earlier, group agreements always, like within any kind of time when we're together, respectful of each other. We might have someone that has a different opinion or a different perspective, and it's an opportunity to learn. You know, wow, I never thought of it that way. You might not agree, but maybe it could open up your insight to, oh, I never thought of it that way. Keep shared information confidential if people decide to disclose something personal. And it's always okay to share the information, though, that's not personal, like the tools and strategies that we talk about. It's always okay to share that. And then giving an equal voice for all participants. And even on the online platform, I think people have been very respectful of that. Is there anything else that needs to be added to this list for us to work together today to help you feel more comfortable in this shared space? Okay. Well, I want to say that wasn't your last chance. If anything comes up later on, even near the end, please share. I'm open to hear what would make you feel more comfortable. Okay. So let's start with an opening activity. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this. Is called Herman's Grid. So what I'd like you to do, please, is stare at the black squares and then see what you might notice appearing. And if you feel comfortable to shout it out, chat it out, or reflect, it's all good. But what are you noticing as you're staring at the black squares?
Someone said gray dots.
Gray dots. Yeah. That's a common response that I've heard before. Anything else?
Gray spots or circles in between the corners of the
I feel like the white becomes even bigger, like the black squares become smaller and the white becomes bigger.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So we've seen a variety of things. Again, reflecting to yourself what you see, and maybe someone that chatted or verbalized might highlight what you experienced too. The fact is that this is an optical illusion. Okay, so what I've heard, you know, a variety of responses, but most commonly people say they see some gray circles in between, like in the vertical and horizontal intersections of this grid. And when you look, you know, asking yourself, when you look directly at the gray circles, they seem to disappear, right? Or maybe when you look directly, the lines go back to normal for the person who said that the white lines widen. So this optical illusion, when you stare at the gray dots or the widening lines, are they really there, right? They seem to disappear when you look at it directly. So taking this concept of Herman's grid optical illusion, this could be an example to keep in mind of the way we might perceive things. Are they really there, or are they really not there? Based on our views, our background, our history, or culture can influence what we might see even beyond this exercise. So have you ever maybe had a wrong first impression about someone that might have been from a different culture than yours? Or has anyone from another origin or culture maybe had a wrong first impression about you? So again, that could be an example of seeing or not seeing what's already there. So that's why we're focusing on cultural humility today as a framework. With cultural humility, it's a great stance to take because it can help us to really focus on what we're seeing by self-reflection and considering another person and other cultures. So where did this start? And you might have heard of cultural humility before, but believe it or not, it started back in 1998 by two doctors, Doctors Melanie Tervalon and Jan Murray Garcia, and they started this stance as a reaction to the medical personnel and patient relationship. The popular view back then was cultural competence. And cultural competence is a way of learning all about a culture, and then somehow feeling you're an expert on that culture as you relate to patients and as they're relating in the medical field. And what doctors Tervalon and Murray Garcia realized was that it's hard to be an expert on someone else's culture, and it could lead to stereotypes and perpetuate that power imbalance, like I am the expert of your culture. So cultural humility takes a different stance. It's a continuous process of self-reflection and self-criticism that addresses inequalities of power that can exist between service providers and their clients. Again, it's different from cultural competence, where cultural humility recognizes a client's authority of their own life experience within their own culture, especially. So in looking at cultural humility as a framework, let's examine some principles, and then we'll examine some key points. So some of the principles: permanent learning and critical self-reflection, as I mentioned before. So this is a lifelong process, a process of continually self-exploring, recognizing when you might be assuming or acting on prejudice, and realizing that we can't know everything about other cultures. It's a continual learning experience. The second point, recognizing and changing power imbalances. So it encourages people in roles of power to recognize the privilege and oppression imbalance, and to continuously focus on rectifying that imbalance. And a great way to start is to validate patients' experience of their life, that they're the expert of their own life, and listening and learning from patients instead of feeling that we have all the answers. And then the last point, institutional responsibility, knowing and keeping cultural humility on the forefront, making changes institutionally to help correct those inequalities and to help promote equity by changing relationships in policy, in organizations, clinics, resources, and working toward making more of a balance. So let's look at some keys. And the keys can also help how to implement cultural humility in day-to-day life. So in implementing cultural humility, there's 6 main keys. And also I want to, mention that you will have access to this PowerPoint after. And there's also 2 handouts that you will receive. And the keys to cultural humility is one of the handouts. So please take notes if you'd like, but know that you will have the paper trail. Okay. So the first point is being open, having an open and an inquisitive attitude. So asking yourself, learning from your families, what's important to them? And that can align services to what they actually need by finding it out from them. What are you looking for? So if they come to you with a question, asking, getting more of an understanding of what they might need. And number 2, being self-aware. So sometimes we might think about culture, and I know when I used to talk about culture in past venues, people might have a reaction because sometimes the way culture might have been introduced might have been surrounded with shaming or blaming. And so it kind of gets a strange feeling might build up. I remember I went once to a training to deal with cultural awareness, and I think it was like an 8-hour training, and I remember crying about 4 hours because of the information that was shared. And it was great experience, but it was still like, oh no. So being self-aware can also mean being aware of your culture. What do you appreciate about your culture and about where you come from? And that could change your lens of how you look out at other people's culture. If you start with appreciation for yourself and for where you come from, it could color the lens of how you see other cultures. Okay, so being self-aware can take that point, that stance, and also being aware of what your assumptions might be, what your prejudices might be, as I mentioned before, and how you can challenge that continuously. But the first step is awareness of them. And then being aware of others. So how is your client or clients influenced by their culture and the challenges that can surround power imbalances? How are they experiencing stereotypes, prejudice? What are their experiences with past people who were there to support them? And maybe they had positive experiences or maybe abrasive experiences with them. So being aware that if you might be getting some negative feedback, it might not be personal. It could be maybe fallout from past experiences. And what can you do to repair and to have them have a different outcome? So, example of also being aware of others and and assuming is, you might look at me and assume that you might know, oh, she's Black, or maybe her family's from here or there, but you might not realize that my family's from the Caribbean, or unless I said that in my introduction, or that I'm first generation originally from New York, or that I'm married to someone who's from Finland. So learning about your families and not just taking face value, but learning, exploring, and it could be a pleasant surprise into changing and expanding your perspective. And the other people can feel respected. Also, putting your ego aside. I'm here at this bottom corner. So knowing, what might trigger you and being aware of your triggers. And are you operating from your triggers, right? So again, the first step is knowing that you have them. So an example of that is being from the East Coast, as I mentioned, and coming to California. I've been here for a while, but at first it was a little unnerving of how familiar people were. So someone older than you, just calling them by their first name, you know? So that was a little bit triggering. And as I started working with families, wanting to call me by my first name, you know, so if they were younger, that was kind of triggering, but being open, saying, oh, maybe it's not anything personal. It's just maybe California culture. So knowing what my triggers are and watching my body language and my reaction, but just being aware that, oh, that's triggering to me. It's okay to be triggered, but it's what you do with it, right? Let me see, what else? So again, being defensive and looking at your verbal communication and also your nonverbal communication. Because if you're triggered, your tone might change, your body language might change, and that could send off a message that you might not want to send out. Self-reflect, you know, that could build on being self-aware, but it also can mean asking yourself, how did that go? And maybe having someone that's supportive in your circle of counsel and saying, you know, this is what happened. You know, again, keeping confidentiality. How did it go? This is how it went. How could I improve? How could I be better for yourself? And then maybe bringing it to your client, like, you know, this went this way, and I'm wondering, did I say or do something that wasn't what you expected? And how could it be better? And then lifelong learning. So asking your families again for an understanding of what they need, where they're coming from, what do you expect from this interaction? How could I be helpful? And so keeping those in mind, you know, applying these keys can set a stage of interaction. And if we set this stage, and I'm going to link this to potty training or learning to let go diapers, if your clients come to you with questions about letting go of diapers and you have this stance, they could know, oh, you're someone that listens, that respects me, that I can trust, and what else might they bring to you, right? So it could really set the stage in this aspect that might expand to other areas of their life. So let me just say this. So when my business partner and I were given this wonderful opportunity to talk about letting go of diapers, what we did was we decided to ask about 40 people in the community, and we did a survey. We just wanted to see what members in our community would say to kind of get a sense of the potty training experiences. So what I like to do is ask you. So in your work with families, what kind of questions have you been asked about the process of teaching to let go of diapers? So that I'm going to ask you to please write your experiences in the chat. And if I can get some help with them.
Sure.
Thank you.
Somebody said, where do I begin? So sounds like a parent not even knowing what to do. So where do I begin?
Where to begin?
How long is it going to take?
Why
does it take so long?
So long. Why?
Another one is, how do I motivate my child? And why are boys harder than girls? Great questions.
Yeah.
How can we work together?
Nice. Now work together.
A parent asked after the after child started, he got scared and why did he regress? So it sounds like a child started to potty to learn and then regressed. And some of the things parents have said are, aren't they too old to be in diapers or pull-ups? And asking, isn't that child just being lazy? What is a good age to start?
Let me put another piece of paper.
I know, right? These are great.
Great question.
And are there any activities to make it more engaging? Do I need to wake them up at night so they don't wet themselves?
Wake up.
And then another question is, when do most children learn to go to the potty without any help? Someone said to me once, I guarantee that your child will go to college or take their first job knowing how to use the toilet. It felt so overwhelming. Can you help me in potty training? Someone's just saying, parents asking.
Can you help me?
What can they do when the child has an accident?
Let's take a couple more.
Okay, let's see if there's any more that come
Oh,
through.
there's a lot of, that's fantastic.
How do you help a child with special needs? That's a good. Lots of good ones. That seems like that's pretty good.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for reading. Those are fantastic. So a lot of different questions. Let me just recap. Where do we begin? How long? How to motivate children? Why do boys seem harder? How do we work together? Scared. The child got scared and started regressing. Too old for diapers, lazy. What is a good age? What's a good age to start? What activities can be more engaging and fun? Do we have to wake them up? And when do we start the, I don't know, I didn't finish that sentence. When do they start, I think? Can you help me? What about accidents and special needs? Those are fantastic questions. So again, keep them in mind in relation to cultural humility, and then we can go through some of these answers in a moment. The next one, and this might answer some. So the next question, this is a poll. So if you could run the poll.
Just launch the poll. You should be able to see it.
So what is the best age to start teaching children to let go of diapers? So if you could take the poll, is it 4 weeks to 4 months, 6 months, 12 to 18 months, 18 to 24 months, 3 years, 4 years? So let's see. What does the poll say? Woo. So again, a lot of variety. So most people thought 18 to 24 months, and that was 52%. And kind of 3 years old was the next at 28%. And then 18 to 20, 12 to 18 months was the next runner-up at 20%. And so it disappeared. And so the other two, thank you. 4 weeks to 4 months got 0, 6 months got 0, and 4 years got 0. Okay, thank you. So as you can see, there's a lot of different questions. And just like the survey we had now, there's a lot of different feelings and opinions of when to start. And, the questions like, why are some genders harder? When should we finish? How do we do it? And so just like our survey that we took with our 40 community members, and like the results now, what we found was, that there are a lot of ways that people teach to let go of diapers or potty train. There's a lot of varieties and answers. Doing a Google search alone for potty training produced more than 10,800,000 different results about potty training. So there's a lot of ways to do this, a lot of techniques. Look at all this gear, right? There's methods. You put this on the toilet, flushable wipes, books for adults, books for children, fancy potties, little step stools so children could reach a toilet. I think what's missing here too are those little low toilets. There's diapers, pull-ups, pull-downs. And this is a picture which I'm going to cover in a moment about crotchless pants that some children wear in different parts of the world to help them learn how to let go of diapers. So there's a lot of different techniques, methods, and beliefs. And there's a lot of factors that also influence, like access to certain resources. Maybe some people can afford these. Have you seen the price of these? These fancy potties and inserts. Or how about weather conditions? In places where it's really warm, you might get some different ways to potty train than other places where it's cold. Or your environment. What's the area's tolerance to where to go to the potty and where not to go to the potty? And each culture has, with each family within, can be very specific about what they feel is the right way to do. So I want you to think about this for a moment. I want to stop for comments or questions, and then we're going to kind of go into bridging cultural humility with potty training. But are there any questions, comments, or feedback that comes to mind right now? I just want to pause. That was a lot of information that we covered.
Let's see. There's nothing in the anything in there right now.
Okay.
So yeah, and people
Right. So
also
again, that's
raise
not
their
it.
hand.
Anything comes to mind.
Yeah.
I can't see everybody, so please help me monitor if someone has their hand raised.
Okay, will do.
Thank you. So let me also add one more layer to what we found that was interesting. And this was, I kind of moved this too fast, how potty training can be handled around the world. So kind of beyond our culture here, and how do other cultures handle? So I'm not saying that this is how everybody in these particular countries do it, but these are just some examples that stood out during our research. So looking at Kenya and Tanzania, in some of the Daigo communities, the process actually begins in the first weeks of the child's life. Moms use their baby's cues in addition to being really close to their child and have them in close proximity. They could determine when the child has to eliminate by getting to know what movements, what facial cues the child's doing, and then they squat down and sit in a position that allows the child to eliminate. So again, that's environment and thinking about climate and warmth, maybe a warm environment. In Germany and some other European countries, they allow children maybe to run around with the lower half of their body unclothed to make it easier for them to realize how it might feel to pee or poop without a diaper. As I mentioned, my husband is from Finland, and when we went to Finland in the summertime and potty training both my children, Kale and Nico, they ran around naked. And so they were able to, just go to the bathroom wherever, and the society, the environment was okay with that. Little kids, oh, they're going to the bathroom, okay. So again, thinking about environment and culture. In some parts of China, includes, remember those pants I showed you with the crotchless? So some children, if it's the age where it's determined that they're going to let go of diapers, use crotchless pants. That makes it easier to just go, right? So they might go in public, and again, it's that same toleration of, oh, that's a child going to the bathroom. And it makes it easier to know or to go without anything interfering in your crotch area. In Russia, it's some parts of Russia usually starts the process at 6 months. So when the baby can sit up after meals, the adult can hold the baby over a bowl or potty to go to the bathroom. I love these pictures too. They're so gorgeous. I want to travel to each one of those places. In Vietnam, much like what we talked about in Kenya and Tanzania, mothers can pay attention to a newborn's facial cues. And then when they notice the signals that their child might have to go to the bathroom, they can hold the child over a potty or a cup. And what was unique, was really interesting, making hissing sounds like pss, 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 so that associates urination to the child, and they could learn to go to the bathroom when they hear that sound. And then in Argentina, here, some parts of Argentina, when a child is learning to go to the bathroom, it can be done, if there's no public bathroom or street, the child can do it in the street. So again, there's different ways, different ages, and different concepts of going to the bathroom. So what are we saying? So again, like we said here, what method to use? What age to start? What's the consensus? What does research show? Research actually shows that there's really no consensus on the best method to follow. So what we found is that science doesn't support one method of being the way, the fastest, the age to start. There's so many different ways that there's no way to quantify what is the best way. So what does that mean to us as providers? So there's so many ways, some of these you might heard of and some maybe not. So a popular new one is called elimination communication. So it's where parents begin the process of removing diapers from birth or up to 4 months of age, much like what we saw globally. There's even a program called Train Your Child in 3 Days, Going Commando, gradually training and led by caregivers, or visiting the bathroom with a set schedule per day to kind of get the routines, or having really fun underpants or panties as incentives. Some people have a chart to reward pee and poo with stickers. And then there's even going to the bathroom training camp. Okay. So again, I'm going to ask you in chat or shout out, have you heard of any other methods? Are there any other methods that you might know of?
There was actually something in the chat about people who think spanking is a way to encourage children to use the toilet.
Okay, yes, we're going to talk about that. Yeah, thank you. So again, we're going to talk about how to implement cultural humility to this milestone of potty training, one of the first of many milestones, keeping in mind what, when the line might be crossed, always having your mandated reporter and keeping child safety in mind if you hear a line cross, but also keeping in mind that there are many ways to potty train, and maybe inviting people to learn of other ways that they might not know. So thank you. Any other ideas or methods?
There is somebody said they use the 3-day method with the commando. And
okay.
Having the child go potty when they wake up from their nap or their sleep, and then their nap or their sleep. So kind of the child.
Thank you. So yes, sometimes caregivers might use one way or a combination, like the 3-day training in the commando. I like that. It's like putting the puzzle piece together.
One is every 3 hours, put the child on the toilet.
Okay.
Setting a timer to go every certain amount of time and extending the time as they get better at it. Some creative people, that's for sure.
Yeah. I know that I don't know if people have heard the Cheerio method, So I remember talking with some parents, one of my classes, about different methods, and they were saying they tried the Cheerio method, but it didn't work. So I remember saying, well, how did you use a Cheerio method? So again, trying to have a questioning, learning stance. And the parents said, I fed my child Cheerios and they still didn't go to the bathroom. Well, I don't know if you know, the Cheerio method is you throw the Cheerios in the toilet. And if you have a boy, they could take aim and make it fun, right? So it's not necessarily eating the Cheerios, it's aiming at them. So that's different ways, but there's a lot of ways. So thank you again for sharing. If any ideas pop up, please keep shouting them out. So within the many ways, and that's what we found, so we heard globally how people do things in different ways. If you have a chance to travel, wow, how they do it in different countries. What the culture feels is like the norm, like kids, like one of the people I interviewed said she went to France and there were children running around in public without clothes because they were potty trained. So that's different, so keeping that in mind, and people might come to you with a variety of different methods that they might be exploring. So even though there's different methods, it kind of breaks down to two approaches that seem to radiate out. So the first one is child initiated. So the child starts showing curiosity and or signs of being ready. So that could be maybe they take their diaper off, or they follow their sibling or parents into the potty and want to sit down too, right? So they could start using a urinal or a potty when they see other children in their daycare or in their family using the bathroom. maybe they become really curious. Maybe they might say things like, I'm already big, I'm ready. I want to be like my sister or brother that doesn't wear diapers, right? So that could be child initiated or adult initiated. Maybe the adult introduces the idea. So maybe the child might sit, like someone said, for a short time on a urinal or potty for specific times a day. And an example of that is elimination communication. And maybe some motivators are of adult initiation is, these diapers are expensive, right? Or I have to do with this now while I have the time. Or this is the age in which diapers need to be taken away. So there could be different motivators, but basically there's two main approaches. So how does that relate when we are questioned, when we're supporting our parents? So learning to let go of diapers and cultural humility framework. So when the issue of letting go of diapers arises in our work with families, our job is to ask, listen, learn, inform, and facilitate if asked, not to assume or decide for them, not to tell them what to do necessarily or how to do it. So again, letting parents know what your stance is. If they come to you with letting go of diapers and you present in this manner, they might feel respected, honored, and might come to you with other issues. So this can be a stance of how your relationship will be with them. Okay.
Yes, it's interesting. There are a couple of other things that people have put in the chat. Some ideas about using some media things, like someone mentioned Daniel Tiger has a show about using the potty. And then someone also suggested that the mother sits down in a lower chair and let the child sit on their foot, keeping his leg apart, and tap the lower part of his back. It's like starts at 6 months. So that's interesting. And somebody asked about supporting families when preschools now expect children to be fully potty trained. May or may not be ready. And yeah, and then someone is a teacher who helps potty train children. So lots of good comments.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So all those are, like just within our time together, we've heard of so many different ways to potty train. And like someone said that they're probably going to be potty trained before they go to college. So there's some success there. And keeping in mind too, maybe, being open when we're asked, sometimes we share our story, right? So, oh yeah, potty train, like as I said, I train both my boys with the Cheerio method. Oh, just throw Cheerios. Well, that might be okay, but they might, again, what are Cheerios? What are you talking about? So being open to this milestone, and it can take two types of work going on simultaneously: your inner work and the way you relate to your families, and using the cultural humility framework. So why would we do that? Again, remember the beginning when we looked at that grid? And we might have seen items or some things that weren't really there. So how can we expand that experience to working with families? Because maybe they might be, maybe there's something that we're seeing that might not really be there. Or maybe that's a tip of the iceberg, like I mentioned, and they maybe want to see what your stance is so they can ask you something else too. But definitely, it could take inner work and work with families. So let's examine first inner work. So what I'm going to ask you to do is, if you want to, close your eyes and think about some of these questions and categories. These questions are not a script. It's just some suggestions of applying the keys to cultural humility to be open and respectful to our families. So close your eyes and reflect if you feel comfortable. So if a family comes to you and talks about, ask one of these questions, maybe think about what's important to this family you're working with. What are their preferences? What are their beliefs? Maybe if you don't know, check it out. What would you think if they wanted to follow a method that in your experience, you don't think is the best? So, watching your body language, what are your triggers? I remember when I had talked to some of the community members I interviewed, and I was saying, my older son, he was having challenges with potty training, and we had dogs at that time, big dogs. And I was like, hey, why don't you go out and pee like Ninja, right, in our backyard? We hose it down. And I remember the person, oh, what? So again, how do you react? That was friend to friend, but how do you react if someone says a method that maybe you don't agree with? So how can you find out more about what they mean? Or are you assuming something? Do you have stereotypes about that family and their decision? Do you need to know more about their background? And how can you show them that you want to learn from them? How can you express that you want to honor where they're going? And if they don't have any idea at all, maybe ask them, are you open for more information? And being, maybe working for yourself innerly, they might say, no, I was just asking in general. Oh, okay, right? So what inner work do you have to do to stay open and putting your clients and families as the experts of their life and culture, and be respectful of how they want to handle this milestone? Okay. So then also, if you want to keep closing your eyes or keep reflecting, how about working with families? So that first is the inner work, knowing your triggers, your assumptions, watching your reactions. And how about your outer work? So while listening and learning from our clients, maintaining an open attitude and knowing that, just from this training, that there's a lot of different methods. None of them really have been scientifically proven to be better than the other, as long as the child's not at risk of abuse, like someone was saying. So always take into account our mandate to report suspected child abuse, right? And keeping that in the forefront. But if the child is not in danger, being open to what the parent wants to do, what the family wants to do. And so some questions you might say is, well, has that worked in the past? How do you feel that will be useful? How does that method work? Not assuming that we know every method, right? Or if they I don't know what to do, like someone said here, I don't know where to begin. Well, have you heard of different methods? Right? Or there's different ways. Are you open to me sharing some information? Or of the methods that you're questioning, what do you think is the best? You know your child better than I do. What do you think works best? How can I help you to put that method into practice? Or how can I be of help? So there's so open your eyes now if they're closed. And if you want to reflect, there's amongst your handouts, besides the one about cultural humility, there's also a handout from Baby Sparks. And that handout is mainly for helpers, childcare people helping their family, not necessarily to give to the families unless you ask questions first, because it talks about child development and cognitive and physical development. So that might not be the method they want to do. But if it is, that's a wonderful guide that can help you, and asking if families are open to that. But knowing that for yourself, so you can have the resources in case they are. Okay. So we're going to go into a scenario. But before we do, in thinking about your inner work and working with families, is there anything in particular that you might think, that's something that I'm going to have a challenge with? Or, that's something that I already do. Thanks for validating that. Anything that comes to mind?
Let's see, I'm looking and seeing. Sometimes it takes a minute for people to type. People can also raise their hand, or even if you wanted to unmute yourself, if you have to say, you can do that too.
So again, if something comes up, just please let me know. But maybe something might come up in this scenario. So this one, I'm going to ask you to go into breakout rooms. So let's take this scenario into consideration, and then you're going to go into breakout rooms of 2 per breakout room for a total of 6 minutes. So that's 3 minutes each to share. So consider this: during a routine visit to one of the families that you work with, your client tells you that due to the quarantine situation, they're planning to potty train their 1-year-old. They know about 2 friends who've done it, and they don't have to spend money on diapers now. So following the keys of cultural humility, what do you think? How would you respond? What's your reaction? What do you say? What do you ask? Okay. So I'm going to invite you. I'm not sure if you can go into the breakout room. Okay. Hello, everyone. So if you don't mind sharing, thank you. Always invite you to reflect on the information. If you don't mind sharing, maybe some highlights in the chat or shout it out. So we had a breakout room here, so we got some items listed already, but curious about what else came to mind.
People can feel free to unmute themselves if they want to. Or they can put it in the chat.
Or two, maybe it might be like, how do
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
So for my son, he is daytime trained, so he knows exactly what to do. But nighttime, I still put the diapers on him. And sometimes, most of the time it comes out dry, but I still didn't start like night training. Should I do a night training or just wait until it's fully like every day dry? Like, what do you advise?
How old is your son?
He's 2 years and 7 months.
Okay. So just keeping with cultural humility, so the main thing is, it sounds like he is in the developmental range, that he seems ready to potty train, and then keeping in mind that at night we're sleeping, so at night it might be a different scenario because he's just learning, right? So just keeping that in mind, that it's up to you what you feel, if he's ready or not. He's got part of his potty training complete, but maybe just giving him some extra time for the rest. But again, where he stands. Okay, so that's a great question too. Does anybody else have any other support given the cultural humility standpoint of how to help and support this question? Okay, people are in a very reflective state, and that's good. So yeah, the main thing is, you know your son, and it sounds like what you're doing is working, and just determining for nighttime, keeping in mind that that is a different frame of consciousness. So yeah, thank you.
Exactly. I feel like it's hard for me to wake him up because I want him to sleep through the night. Like I've been willing for me, like I've been waiting for him to sleep through the night. And now like if I wake him up while he's sleeping, I'm afraid it's gonna go back to him waking up every hour. So.
Right. So again, so you are the expert of your child. You realize that, wow, I'm balancing between potty training and sleeping through the night. I think I'm going to choose sleeping through the night right now. Right. So know what works for you. So you can get some sleep. And I hear there might be younger children around. So that might be a balance that you can work out later. Right. So maybe daytime, he is potty trained, and nighttime, so everybody can sleep, is pull-ups or whatever you feel that you need to do for your son. That's perfect.
Yeah, there's some other questions. There's one about someone's asking about tips for an older child that regressed, 4 or 5 maybe regressed back to using diapers. That was one thing, and then there's some other comments too.
So what about the older child? So I'm wondering how old?
4 to 5, maybe 4.5, I guess.
Okay, and then keeping in mind too that that we're under trauma, right? We're under the shelter in place, so we're under a umbrella of constant tricklings of trauma, and that adults react to trauma in a certain way. We might say, I'm so stressed out, but children might not even know what that is. I'm feeling a certain way, but I don't know what this is. And so that might account for the regression. I don't know the circumstances, but keeping that in mind, that we are all under an umbrella of trauma, and children react in different ways than adults do. So, maybe talking with your primary care physician, maybe doing relaxation techniques and comforting and helping your child regulate, because it could be an expression of trauma. And I'm just putting that out there. Okay. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, and someone says in a breakout room, someone mentioned that they were pretty open to having a 1-year-old start potty training, and parents know as an introduction instead of going speed ahead. This person says that I've worked with a lot of diverse families who have started potty training from 1 year or even before 1 year. And how, it sounds like sort of maybe adding the piece of information of maybe this is just kind of a starting point, an introduction instead of, well, that's interesting.
So it sounds like openness with a little bit of psychoeducation, like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And it could be a starting point. It could be a starting point, or maybe that's a strength of this child, and they just, it's done.
Yeah.
So yeah, so being open. Thank you. So that's definitely external work. And the internal work too is you're open to what the family feels is important for their child at this time. Right. So thank you.
Yeah. So, and there was someone in one other one. That they agree that they were very happy. Let's see, my partner at the break room agree that we were very happy that you're taking the time to do this early. Don't rush the child. So saying how great that you're just taking the time to do this early to the parent, how great that is. And just wondering about, you know, maybe introducing the other idea of really not pushing, but, you know, kind of having a gentle approach. Anyway, so a lot of people are mentioning giving support.
Oh, that's nice.
To remind people that children will get there in their time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's nice.
Thank you. So thank you so much. And so I just want to, so those are fantastic ideas. And there's a lot of, there was some internal work that people shouted out. So checking on your own biases, and also a lot of external work, asking questions about before or after the quarantine. How can we work together? And then, well, that might be internal work. I wonder whose schedule that is. Maybe dealing with policies in a facility, like you want your child to go to preschool, and that's just the policy. They have to be potty trained. So maybe helping the parent come to terms of what that means. And then I'm like, also, how can I help if I can? And then talking about, you know, would you be interested in learning about child development, and being open and okay and really validating the parent's choice for their child and their family. So that's wonderful. Thank you. So keeping those in mind and keeping what people have said in mind. So just in summary, you know, letting go of diapers is an important milestone. For kids, it's a step of independence. And for adults, again, it could be getting rid of diapers, but they might not know that there's accidents. You know, sometimes it could be one child's strength, like they got potty training, and then within the same family, there's someone else's, that's not their strength. It's a very personal milestone. And so know that there's a spectrum, right? Just like us as adults. Some things people are really great at, and some things not so much. We're all different. And that also trickles down to potty training. Each child's unique, even within the same family. Thinking about, is a child really ready for the process? Developmental stage, knowing too that a lot of the, usually two-ish, sometimes earlier, but 2 to 3 is a stage where people start thinking about it. And it's a stage where children are trying to get autonomy. So that's, maybe they want to be bigger. I want to do this myself, but that could add to power struggles. If, like someone has said, if you push or rush, they want to do everything themselves. I could do it. So keeping that in mind, if there's some power struggles and individual differences, everybody's different. And then, is the adult ready for the process? Like that scenario, the adult felt like, I'm home, I should do this. So is it time? Is the child ready? Is that going to alleviate stress or add more stress? Like what the mom had said, the question, I'm balancing sleeping through the night with potty training. That you have to answer for yourself. Which one is important to you? And it sounded like sleep was, and nighttime potty training could take a back burner for a little while. We talked about environment. Is the environment, is there a new baby? Is there maybe someone that the child used to be in their family, they saw all the time, but now because of the pandemic, they're not in their family bubble, and that might lead to regression or stress that they just don't know what's going on, but they just don't feel right. And regardless of the age, starting the process, pay attention to the child's behavior, and you might have to make adjustments. So last thoughts, accidents are part of learning. Just a quick, cute story, my son Kale, and he, in learning, he was like 3.5 when he was finishing potty training, and I was pregnant with my next son, and he would always say, we'd go out and go, Mom, my shoe's wet. I was like, we didn't step in any puddles. What are you talking about, your shoe's wet? And he would pee in one shoe, like no pee on his pants or anything, just directly into that shoe. And it was like, oh, wow, that's an interesting trick. And okay, it happens. So it was like, when you feel like it's happening or about to happen, let mama know. So we had to just get a lot of extra clothes, and he's fine now. Regression can be part of the process, or like we talked about, it could be an expression of stress. And there's no shame in stopping the process and starting later if you find the environment is not conducive right now. The main thing to empowering caregivers is to be kind to yourself and take care of yourself so you could be in a calm state, so they could be open to what their child needs and presents. This process has an end, and it's usually successful. And know your child better than anyone else. It's okay to ask for help and let caregivers know that they got this. Okay? There might be a spectrum, but they got it. Okay. So I want to thank you. Empowerment flows when we validate a person from their culture, their history, their values, and their experiences. So I want to thank you very much for sharing ideas and spending time together. Are there any final questions, comments, or feedback?
Yes, there's a comment. Someone said that sometimes parents often are seen as though or feel like failures because their children are not potty trained by That's so true.
That's true. That's true. Right.
to
So
kind
part
to
of maybe our job as providers is to encourage them, right? And, let them know, what about not potty training is making them feel like they're a failure? Where's that coming from? Is it friends? Is it family? Is it them? What does it mean to have your child potty trained? What does it mean to not have your child potty trained? So maybe empowering them to make those decisions and know that it's one milestone in a lot of milestones to come. And how can you help them to feel better through that so they can help their child?
And someone is asking about handouts that they can share with families to use for reference about potty training.
Right. There's we are going to send the list of references. The
Great.
main one that I do like, though, there's a lot of references there. Again, there's How the World Potty Trains, Culture Humility. There's the Baby Sparks, but again, read it yourself because it does talk about one or two main ways of potty training, not a gamut. So making sure you're aligned with what that family wants. But read it for yourself so you can get other resources and ideas to share.
Yeah, people are also asking about books, and I think most of us could go on to Google or anything and find there's, all kinds of books about letting go of potties and potty training books. I don't know if there's any that you recommend, Chantal, or
There's so many.
so many.
They're so cute. Some are cute and some are adult, but look at our list of resources.
And that'll be coming.
The focus, is mainly around keeping that cultural humility framework and helping your clients and families learn with potty training.
Yeah, letting them, following the lead of the family and the child.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Chantal, for being here today.
Oh, thank you for having me. And thanks everybody for coming out. That was wonderful. Thanks for sharing ideas. And I can't wait to see everyone again.